Beginning August 17th of 2024, there will be some big changes coming to the real estate industry. In one of my previous videos, I explained the details surrounding the National Association of Realtors lawsuits and settlement, and in that same video, I focused on how these proposed changes would impact buyers, sellers, and realtors. The settlement is still subject to final court approval, and the motion for final approval is expected to be filed at the end of this year. But now that preliminary approval has been granted, I want to take some time to really dive into how these changes are going to impact buyers specifically. So in this video, we're going to talk about the options that you have as a buyer who chooses to work specifically with a buyer's agent, how these changes are going to impact you as the buyer, and why hiring a great buyer's agent is going to help you save money, time, and energy throughout the home buying process. And if we haven't met yet, hi, I'm Stacey Russell, your Northwest Houston Realtor, educating buyers, sellers, and investors on all things real estate. If you're not already a member of my community, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button so that you can stay up to date on all of the real estate videos that I post weekly on my channel. It's really important to me that I am creating a community where people feel like they can leave comments and have their questions answered, and also gain insight on various real estate topics. In case you missed my last video on the National Association of Realtors lawsuit and settlement, I have linked it in my description so that you can easily access it. Under these new changes, buyers who choose to work with a real estate professional must sign a buyer-tenant representation agreement before the first tour of a property can ever take place. So what this means for you as a buyer is that before you go and see any home in person with any real estate agent, you'll actually need to sit down with an agent first and review and sign the buyer-tenant representation agreement. I actually have a whole other video that takes time to break down every single paragraph and page of this legally binding document, and I strongly encourage that you go and watch it just so that you can be aware of the terms and exactly what you're being asked to sign. But essentially, the buyer-tenant representation agreement is an employment contract that lays out all of the terms and commitments that you and your buyer's agent are agreeing to. One of the most important paragraphs in the buyer-tenant representation agreement is paragraph 11, which is titled Broker's Fees. This is where you and your real estate agent will define and agree to the amount of compensation that you, as the buyer, are willing to pay your buyer's agent. And I want you to remember that commissions are always negotiable. When it comes to commission, there is no standard, set, or fixed amount that is considered normal. Some real estate agents may choose to work for a flat fee, while other agents may choose to work for a commission. Once you and your agent have reviewed and signed the buyer-tenant representation agreement, just know that you have now signed a legally binding contract, and you are going to be required to pay your buyer's agent the specified amount in that contract. However, depending on the house that you ultimately decide to put an offer in on and buy, you may or may not be the person who actually has to pay your agent compensation. So how is this possible? With the changes from the NAR settlement, offers of compensation on the MLS will no longer be allowed. However, your agent is allowed to reach out to different listing agents to find out if their seller or the listing agent's broker is willing to pay your agent a commission or some form of compensation. If the seller or listing broker on a particular home is not willing to pay your buyer's agent some form of compensation, then you will be required as the buyer to pay your agent the amount specified in the buyer-tenant representation agreement. On the other hand, if there is a seller or a listing broker that is willing to pay your buyer's agent a commission or compensation of some kind, then you could end up only having to pay a small portion or even none of what is outlined in your buyer-tenant representation agreement. Now, I want to be really clear in telling you that this is not steering. As long as a real estate agent that is representing a buyer is able to relay all of the information about whether a seller or a listing broker is or is not offering some form of compensation to a buyer's agent, then all is good. Once the buyer has all of the information, then it is ultimately the responsibility of the buyer to make the decision on if they want to move forward with seeing and putting an offer in and closing on a home or not. Now, if a real estate agent that is representing a buyer makes the decision on their own to only show properties that are offering buyer broker compensation, then that is definitely steering, and then we've got a problem. So ultimately, these changes will be happening, and they are going to impact buyers in a few different ways. The first of which being that, like we said earlier, buyers are no longer going to be able to just go and see a property whenever they want without signing a buyer-tenant representation agreement. And I can understand how this could be frustrating to a buyer who feels like they are being forced to sign a legally binding contract with a real estate agent that they don't even know. And this is why it is so important to really take some time and do your homework and schedule some interviews with a bunch of different realtors so that you can select the best real estate agent for you. I have said it before and I'll say it again, and people in the comments have said it for me. Not all real estate agents are created equal. And I really want to stress the point that you have the choice in who you hire. You deserve to be treated with kindness, fairness, compassion, and empathy. And you should really have somebody who is invested in you and making sure that you are making the best decision possible. Another way that these changes will impact buyers is that there may be some buyers who are ready to buy a home and they've saved up for their down payment and their inspection and closing costs and all of that good stuff, but they don't have the extra money in their budget to actually pay a real estate agent for their services. Please know that just because you may not have the money in your budget to pay a real estate agent for their services does not mean that you shouldn't still be interviewing agents and discussing commission and different pricing options that can support both you and your agent. It is very likely that you are able to find a realtor who is willing to work for a flat fee or a reduced commission in order to help you get into a home and be fully represented. A great buyer's agent will be there to represent your best interests and help guide you through the home buying process. Additionally, they'll provide a valuable insight, negotiate on your behalf, and ensure that you are making informed decisions every step of the way. And lastly, a great buyer's agent is going to give you a 5-star client experience that is going to help save you time, money, and energy during the home buying process. I'd love to know what questions or fears that you have about these upcoming changes and how they'll impact you as a buyer. Leave a comment below so that I can answer your questions and help you make sense of all of these changes that will be coming to the real estate industry. And if you're somebody who really wants to get ahead of the curve and start interviewing real estate agents now, be sure to schedule a call with me using my Calendly link in the description of this video. I would love the opportunity to connect with you and better understand how I can help and see if we would be a good fit to work together. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.